His father was a lawyer, a federal prison official. Years later, his son would walk into the United States and become a cooperating witness. Dámaso López Serrano did not grow up on the streets or inside a cartel crew. He was raised inside institutions, paperwork, and silence. But when his father crossed from the state into the criminal underworld, that silence turned into power. Dámaso wasn't trained to fight. He was prepared to replace. Money before weapons, access before fear, succession before spectacle. This is not a story about glorifying crime. It's about how a system quietly builds its own heirs, then discards them. Subscribe if you want to understand how hidden power actually works. Dámaso López Serrano was born in 1987 into a household that did not fit the usual profile of cartel families. There were no armed convoys outside, no open displays of violence, no childhood shaped by survival or street loyalty. From the outside, his upbringing looked stable, even respectable. That impression was not an illusion. His father, Dámaso López Núñez, known as El Licenciado, was a trained lawyer and a former federal prison official. He had spent years inside Mexico's penitentiary system. He understood how institutions really functioned, not in theory, but in practice. How paperwork stalled, how supervision weakened, how people inside the system could be influenced quietly, without noise or force. That knowledge became decisive in the late 1990s, when El Chapo was incarcerated at the federal prison of Puente Grande in Jalisco. According to court records and later investigative reporting, El Licenciado was instrumental in facilitating El Chapo's escape in January 2001, when the cartel leader left the prison hidden inside a laundry cart. For El Chapo, the escape meant freedom. For El Licenciado, it changed everything. From that moment on, the relationship between the two men stopped being transactional. El Licenciado was no longer just useful. He was trusted. El Chapo relied on him not for violence, but for structure, managing corruption, controlling information, and insulating the organization from the state. He became part of the cartel's nervous system. Dámaso López Serrano grew up inside that reality. He did not enter the organization through bravado or force. According to his own later accounts, his first responsibilities began around 2006-2007, when he was about 19 or 20 years old, mostly in Culiacán, Sinaloa. These were not glamorous tasks. He was asked to move large amounts of cash, to hide money in private homes, to keep track of funds and losses. In the Sinaloa Cartel, money was not just revenue, it was a measure of trust. El Mini Lic handled it carefully. Because he did not make mistakes, he was given more to manage. Over time, El Licenciado delegated additional responsibilities to his son: local distribution, oversight of trusted intermediaries. Later, logistical roles connected to production and transport routes, including operations tied to the United States. None of this happened overnight. El Mini Lic was not promoted. He was tested step by step. At the same time, his personal relationship with El Chapo deepened. Dámaso López Serrano became close friends with Edgar Guzman, one of El Chapo's sons. They spent time together in Culiacán and at ranches in El Dorado, Sinaloa, and parts of Sonora, areas El Chapo used as temporary refuges when pressure intensified. During some of these stays, El Chapo moved with minimal security, relying instead on a small, inner circle he trusted completely. El Mini Lic was often there. That closeness became pivotal on May 8, 2008. On that day, Edgar Guzman was killed in Culiacán. According to El Mini Lic, he had spoken to Edgar less than 15 minutes earlier. Edgar had invited him to accompany him. A last-minute change of plans kept El Mini Lic away. Edgar did not survive. The loss hit El Chapo hard. In later conversations, El Mini Lic said that El Chapo repeatedly asked him about Edgar, about his routines, his personality, the smallest details of his life. Over time, El Mini Lic came to occupy a unique emotional position. He was not a replacement. He was a reminder a living connection to a son El Chapo had lost. Inside the organization, people noticed. El Chapo began attending Dámaso López Serrano's family events, birthdays, baptisms, private celebrations, sometimes more consistently than he did those of his own sons. When doubts or criticism surfaced within the cartel, El Chapo intervened directly. According to later testimony, he shut down accusations and reinforced his protection. That was when the label started circulating internally. El ahijado consentido, the favored godson. The term did not mean unchecked authority. It meant expectation. El Mini Lic was seen as someone being prepared quietly, without spectacle, for a future role. By the early 2010s, his lifestyle reflected that position. Not loudly extravagant, but unmistakably privileged. Secure properties, access to high-end restaurants, travel without interference, relationships with musicians and entertainers linked to narco-propaganda. These connections were not about leisure. They were signals, proof of money, access, and internal legitimacy. In this world, controlled visibility was power, and all of it depended on one man. In February 2014, El Chapo was captured in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, and imprisoned at Altiplano. In July 2015, he escaped again through a tunnel, briefly restoring the illusion that the old order could survive. That illusion collapsed on January 8, 2016, when he was recaptured in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. On January 19, 2017, he was extradited to the United States. Even before that final removal, fractures were forming. According to El Mini Lic, as early as 2013, El Chapo had suggested to his sons and closest associates that those who had accumulated enough wealth consider surrendering voluntarily to U.S. authorities. The logic was blunt. Survival mattered more than dominance. At the time, the idea sounded theoretical. Few believed the center would truly disappear. Before his extradition, El Mini Lic later claimed that El Chapo left behind an informal understanding. Operational control would pass to El Licenciado. Financial power would remain with his sons, Ivan, Archivaldo, and Jesus Alfredo Guzman. It was never written, never enforced. It relied entirely on El Chapo's presence. Once he was gone, it meant nothing. Los Chapitos rejected any subordinate role. Tensions escalated throughout 2016, until August 15, 2016, when El Chapo's sons were kidnapped at the La Leche restaurant in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco. El Mini Lic has said he did not plan the operation, but admitted he knew about it and did not intervene. Regardless of responsibility, the message was clear. The conflict was no longer internal. The idea of succession was over. From that point forward, survival replaced strategy. Family members and associates of El Licenciado became exposed. Alliances unraveled. Silence, once protective, turned dangerous. When El Licenciado was arrested on May 2, 2017 in Mexico City, the last layer of protection disappeared. According to El Mini Lic, his father urged him to surrender, arguing that staying meant death, and that cooperation was the only remaining path. In July 2017, Dámaso López Serrano surrendered to U.S. authorities. It was not presented as remorse. It was not framed as betrayal. It was a calculation. In the United States, El Mini Lic became a cooperating witness. Court filings and investigative journalists report that his cooperation included information about the internal structure of Los Chapitos. The cartel's shift toward fentanyl production beginning around 2014, the use of music and popular culture as narco-propaganda, and allegations of corruption involving public officials. These claims were introduced cautiously and examined within legal proceedings. The transformation was complete. The man once prepared to inherit power inside a criminal organization now existed solely through the value of what he knew about it. He did not emerge victorious. He emerged alive. El Mini Lic's story is not about triumph or dominance. It is about proximity, about how growing up close to power can be more dangerous than standing outside it. He was shaped by a system that valued discipline, discretion, and loyalty, only to discard him when those traits became liabilities. In the end, the so-called heir did not inherit an empire. He inherited the consequences of a system that could not survive itself. In the end, Dámaso López Serrano did not lose power because he lacked preparation. He lost it because the system that raised him collapsed from the inside. He was trained to manage order, money, trust, structure, not to survive chaos. When El Chapo was removed, succession became meaningless. Loyalty turned dangerous. Silence stopped protecting anyone. Becoming a cooperating witness was not redemption. It was survival. The so-called cartel prince did not inherit an empire. He inherited consequences, legal, personal, and irreversible. That is the real lesson here. Power doesn't only destroy through violence. It reshapes people quietly, through proximity. And when it breaks, it rarely spares those it once favored. So is El Mini Lic a beneficiary of privilege, or its final casualty? If you want more clear, unsentimental breakdowns of how hidden power really operates, subscribe to the channel. We focus on the machinery behind the headlines, without glamour and without shortcuts.